So hey guys, today we're going to talk about AVAX, Avalanche, right? And as you guys have seen in the thumbnail and the title, there is a massive bearish sign that you might want to take advantage of, right? Things like these don't come around very often, right? And if you observe previously, all these moves, they've led to 46% in drawdowns, and this is going to be something that is potentially more, right? So let's get into it and let's find out what exactly this is. The first thing that we always like to talk about here are orders, right? So where are your orders at? Where are the market makers getting in, and how do we identify this? We do that by getting our equal lows and highs, right? So let's do this together, shall we? So firstly, there is a major level on the daily over here, which is going to be at $9.33, right? These are equal lows. So you have your first one and your second one, right? So, and what these do is these levels, these are where market makers got in, right? When you see consecutive orders like this, it's usually where market makers get in, and that is a level that is very likely to get swept. So if you observe over here, the market makers got in over here, and they probably exited over here, selling on everyone, right? So, and they've taken price back down to this area of low volume. So if we go on to our VPVR, right, and if we go back to, let's say, something like here, you can clearly see there wasn't much volume in this area, right? And this is what we talked about on the last video about ADA, which there is also a massive bearish sign on. I'm going to link it to the top right actually, and you guys can go watch that right after this. What we talked about was areas without volume, right? Market makers tend to bring price back down to those levels to fill that area, right? So if you observe here, there is barely any volume in this sector, right? And if we go out of replay mode back to where we are today, you can clearly see that all of that has been filled, right? And this area of low volume, we have been ranging in for quite a bit. And so now you might be thinking, what's next, right? And why I say it is bearish is, firstly, we have our daily level right here. So you guys have to have an alert over here, so set that right now. And then once we go farther, we start to see the cracks appear more, right? So this is our first one. There's relatively equal lows over here, and these are relative enough to the point where I'd consider them equal lows. So this is a very important level. So let's just mark that out. And then you can see there's more relative equal lows here, right? There's relative equal lows here that have been untapped. So let's turn on the VPVR for now. There's perfectly equal lows over here which haven't been tapped for the past 3 times, right? So if we just get that like that, so you have 1, 2, 3 and 4, the big one. You have 4 points of potential liquidity for price to take out, right? So all of these are orders created by the market makers, and everything that you see over here is simply manipulation. And this might tie into the retail's support and resistance theory, but that is where most people get it wrong, right? Equal lows and equal highs, they tend to look as support and resistance, is what you're taught as a retail trader, right? But it is actually institutional manipulation, right? And yeah, so it's institutional manipulation, and that is something that you should always remember. So 1, which is at 16.39, 2, 15.8, 13.74 and 9.3. These are all really important levels that I want you guys to mark out on your charts right now, right? As we're speaking, go onto your charts and mark these levels out and come back to the video. And why, you might be thinking now, why did I circle this over here? So the main point of circling this, or rather to be concentrated, this is to identify that this is a daily order block, right? You have instant price rejection at this point. So let's draw that out over here. Let's get our trend line and let's draw that out. We'll make it green to show that it is higher up, right? So, and at this point, right, so what market makers usually tend to do is they tend to hit an order block over here before they go down, and it's called inducement, right? You can look up more about it. It's a very common thing in forex. So what this actually means is that it is likely that price will revisit an older order block, right, which is the most prominent one being this. So it is likely that you're going to see something like this before these induced lows get taken. So you might get a sweep, revisit this one, get a sweep, revisit a new one that's created, and take these, right? Something like this is definitely possible, and these are all induced lows, right? And even if you observe these ones, or even these ones, right? They're all induced, and you should observe that there is also a lack of volume in this area. So it is even possible that price may return to fill in this imbalance as well. So what does this all mean? You might be thinking, well, let me simplify it for you, right? So basically what I am looking for AVAX to do is for price to revisit this level, or rather here, to fill in a fair value gap perhaps, right? So this is going to be my area of value. So let's mark this out. All right, so between these 2 points, right, this order block and this fair value gap fill, this is where I'm looking for shorts. So what I am going to do is I'm going to wait for price to go to my level where I've set an alert, if you can observe, right? So I'm going to wait for price to go to my level, range, go down, and then so on. And all these equal lows will be potential targets for me, right? Since it's a very obvious take profit, right? And if you observe above, right, there's not much liquidity to be taken as when you compare it to down, right? So if you observe here, there is not much institutional manipulation however far up you go, right? So the market makers tend to clear out the board completely before they're done, right? And you can see that they're short all the way from over here. So all these wicks that you observe, right, like this one, right, these wicks, these series of wicks, right, and then if we go farther back, these series of wicks and these series of wicks, this is all institutional price manipulation, right? You have to understand, as I explained on last video, that to create wicks like these you need a lot of money, and that is something that retail just simply doesn't have. To coordinate a move this big, right? So if you really think about it, right, let me highlight this once again. Even a small wick like this one, it is around 27.53% on the daily chart, right? So 27.53%, assuming AVAX is worth $1 billion, it is a shitload of money, right? Which retail simply cannot coordinate that much of a movement within itself. So to recap, right, I am looking for price to revisit this area of value between 20.07 and 21.38, which I want you guys to mark out right now for me to get into shorts, right? And if you observe the markets in total and the macroeconomic factor of it, it's not a good time to be in the markets, right? There is a lot of things that are unaccounted for, like the housing crisis is going on in the world, right? And just the fact that the economy is in a shitty state right now. Until the Fed starts cooling down a little bit, it's gonna be like this, right? You don't want to be a bull in a bear market and a bear in a bull market, right? So know which is which. And right now we're obviously in a bear market, right? So macroeconomically things aren't looking that good. So on a macro time frame, I will obviously consider shorts rather than longs, right? And why it is risky for me to long this two over here is that there is no confirmed break of structure yet, first thing. And second thing is these equal lows, right? Of course, it is a very high probability that these will get induced and price will revisit a previous order block before going back down. But there is also a possibility that we might just receive these, right? So it is a higher conviction trade for me to get in over here than it is for me to get in over here, right? So yeah, that is basically why I think AVAX is going to go down and why I think it's not in a good state right now. And I want all of you guys to chart this out. And so yeah, if you want more trades that I'm taking, like shorter term trades, like scalps, where I make quite a good amount of money, right? Paper money, of course. So you want to follow my Twitter. It's going to be slime_giant, and I'll link it in the description below. So you'll get live trades, information, and I also author quite a few threads about your mindset and stuff like that. So make sure you follow my Twitter. All right. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys. Bye.